So there's something that could be said for all of this, in that there is a history that wasn't presented too incorrectly. There is an anchor or foundation that allows all of this to be before it can even be put under administration, and it's that remembering that would return you from what would be foreign to you. There is now a faithful side to the foundations at law that are somewhat being obscured here in the guise of politics. It could be said that a right exists within the boundaries of international law at which administration under the rules of usufruct, or the use of the fruits, would determine the boundaries of the entities at play within those laws. And we know that The Hague is upheld by the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade under Minister Penny Wong, and we know that the Attorney General of Australia is somewhat responsible for that international stage and that embarrassment. But at the same time, rules of arbitration have overlaid and somewhat controlled that government since 1974. There is a thumb over the top of what exists as administrator with full force of model law, and that is why you see wartime policing in this debt collecting force. Peace in a world stage is not what one would assume that word to mean. In its core essence, it means an absence of war at which you have somewhat been obscured from over the last 30 to 40 years. Peace would be understanding that a financial burden and a control of the fruits of a country are relative to the surroundings that you have around you at the moment. In a quick form of wanting to stop this WEF onslaught financially would be to return to your constitutional currency locally and circulate those silver coins again, and demand of the Mint, the Perth Mint and the Australian Mint, to produce coinage in the quarter ounce and the 10th and 20th, so that it could be more easily circulatable throughout your society. All peoples have a right of self-determination, and this is the core aspect of international law that surrounds this ability to return back to the house of your forefathers, at which a nanny government has taken the place of the sons of those fathers for a very long time. It's not up to one man, it is up to all of the men of a country to stand united like their forefathers and defend those things that they create and hold. When you have foreign interests telling you you'll own nothing and you'll enjoy it. What right do these foreign interests have when it comes to a crown under administration, wherein administrators have taken it upon themselves to imitate that sovereignty itself? There is a core aspect to the Commonwealth of Australia founded in a king's domain, and a king's domain exists in the scriptural sense as a real foundation to what could then be defined as the territorial waters. There's important aspects of law that most people don't consider when they try and argue with the state over the state's actions. The state sees you as a child. The state sees you as a pauper. The state sees you as one of its children at which it gets to push around and control in military space with wartime policing, as demonstrated in this court case. So there are a lot of aspects that have come to light, and the reasoning behind them, which we will start to get into, this curial aspect, and why a claim in this aspect might put a different set of rules on the table in regard to the way an administrative government has been treating the people that it administers. And it could be defined as, what are the obligations of a government? Are its obligations to look after all of the ward children and treat them like lunatics who don't believe in a certain doctrine? It's almost as if the state wants you to remain in this indoctrinated state of mind. Because don't forget, this whole matter is relative to mind and thought, and the process of thought to come to a conclusion that has now been somewhat ratified by a justice speaking about these matters within the court record. What is this curial right that precedes a right that is determined in governance on the table right now? And what right would one have to argue with that right? This is now coming to this core essence of what it means to be a sovereign and independent Commonwealth of Australia on that world stage, at which it was taken from you in an abandonment to sucking off the mummy's titty again. If you want this back, you are going to need to firstly support your scout halls and fill those scout halls with all of the army surplus gear that they would need to defend a town. It is your obligation as the fathers and sons of these towns to have them prepared and ready for any form of defence that may arise in a battlefield situation. I mean, God forbid that would happen in any one of your towns, but this was the absolute truth in the matter, in that your scout halls were the go-to point to be prepared, as Baden-Powell put it. And you all disregarded this preparation for this hippie way of life, in forgetting how your forefathers left this image for you to stand in their lineage.